And you're welcome. It's time for our Wellness Extra. Now, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month often sneaks by with little attention, yet behind closed doors, Nigerian men and boys wrestle with pressure, pain, and also internalized silence. Now, in a society where masculinity is still defined by stoicism, emotional suppression, and the false ideal of man up, the psychological toll is steep. Depression, substance abuse, and suicide remain underreported in men, partly because they've been taught not to speak, not to cry, and definitely not to ask for help. As psychiatrists note, male mental distress is often masked by aggression, withdrawal, or risky behavior. Now, cultural expectations discourage vulnerability, leaving too many to suffer in silence. And even when a man seeks help, the support system is patchy at best. Between poor access, low awareness, and the persistent stigma that mental illness is weakness, we're also seeing new layers of mental strain, economic pressures, joblessness, social displacement, and shifting family roles. The question is, are we even ready to help men heal?
And so to lead this very necessary conversation, we welcome Mohammed Ahmed. He's a
Perinatal
Anxiety and Depression Coach. Are you? I thought you were an educationist. You wear two hats.
No, I'm a clinical psychologist.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
There we
You're
go.
welcome. Thank you very much. This should be a conversation between you and I, but you stay. Well, it's a very interesting instance. This personal one. I'll let you know. Now, I might get emotional here, because a couple of years ago I was myself suicidal, and over the past years after that, 2 years after that, I found myself being more expressive, healing better, and enjoying life more. And this was born out of suppression of emotions, suppression of language, suppression of expression, which is very interesting, because one would think that in my mode of work that I'm a very expressive person, but not noticing that society, religion, and much more has caused and causes people to actually fall into a little bubble where they feel the world is ending. So I'll let you to take it on from here before I start to break down.
Oh, please don't. So the question really is, why do we see silence when it comes to men's mental health, in spite of how our worlds have evolved, and we're now a global village, and we have access to the internet, and people are more open about discussing about it, but there's very much a silence with men.
Thank you very much for that, and let me start by acknowledging him.
Yes, of course.
I'm so glad you could be expressive still now and vulnerable on this stage. What you experience is what we call post-traumatic growth. When you get to the rock bottom, and it looks like it's all about to end, and at some point you have to bounce back up, far better off than you used to be. And I really don't know how it happened. Probably there were some factors that, but every individual has a point of reawakening. I think that was a moment for you. So coming back to silence, you see, what we see is what happens in adulthood. The neglect has been there over the years. And sadly, the boy child grows up by default.
You got a sorry in your throat there.
Yeah, the boy child grows up by default, not given the right attention. Hardly would you see schools or informal settings where we have boys being taught about grooming, sex education. This is what you say, this is how you do. Even in the home setting, the boy child is not domesticated. And you see, if a child is not in a space where he or she can interact and get quality feedback, that individual would not understand himself and won't even understand how to express himself. So, and if you look at, let's even take the older, the boomers, let's take the older generations. The way our fathers have actually parented the home was, they were the rulers of the home, and because they had also generational trauma, they bottled it up, and they were like, and you see pictures of men carrying the whole family, all in their head and with their silence and struggling and all. So it has been like that. And I would dare say that that isn't the true African culture. That's part of what I want to say today. It is the more we became individualistic in nature, the more we borrowed the Western culture, the more we started to experience more of this silence. The true African culture, the Ubuntu principle, the collectivistic mindset. In the morning, when the cock crows, the family is up, men gather around, they tell children their stories, you know. In the afternoons, you are together in the farm setting, you know. Each man work on the same farm. Once they finish from a farm, they all move to another farm. So it was about sharing and supporting each other. So the point is, it's a lifestyle change that we have been exposed to unconsciously. And then if you look at history, after the industrial era, you know, starting from the World War era, 1914 to 1948, it was men that were recruited the most into the war zone, into war, and they went to fight. Most of them didn't come back home. That was where the disintegration of the home started. You know, those that came back had mental health issues, they couldn't function well, you know. Gradually, we moved into the technological era, the industrial era. It was more of men working in industries, leaving the women in the home to be burdened with the breadwinner and the homemaker responsibility. So it got to a point where the women also couldn't just wait for men to come back and to meet up the needs, because there were certain areas the men were also lacking. And then we started having the white-collar jobs, and women started working as secretarial duties. They started leaving their own front too. So the system also was changing. Societal, you know, everything was changing, and the roles were changing. Now, in this era that we are in now, it is more of we are equal, you know, and everybody is in a space of competition instead of collaboration. You know, so, and that is a lot of pressure for men, because when you take on masculine roles, it diminishes the masculine energy from the man.
That's very interesting.
Yes, and when you even take on feminine role as a man, you start to simp. It makes you unattractive to the woman.
Sorry, I'm distracted here. Judith, what's going on here?
No.
Just don't make this an argument in any case, because this is men's mental health month.
When you use the word simp, it's very...
It's too strong.
No, it's saddening, right? Because it's saddening, right? And again, you're a guest, and I'm trying to not be. I want to be nice.
A caveat. Please. I'm not saying that men can't take on feminine roles. I talked about domesticating the boy child earlier. Okay? But I'm saying that the dominant energies for each gender has to be dominantly expressed at all times for both genders to actually, you see.
But it's also dangerous as well. And just hang on. Let me land, please. There are two things that I took out of this. As much as you asked that the boys be domesticated, you also did say that our tradition was somewhat open as regards, you know, mental health. And that is where I disagree with you. Now, if you cast your mind back to the systems that there is, right? Whether it's the Yoruba or the Hausa or the Igbo, they are predominantly, the leadership roles are predominantly by men.
Okay.
Right? And the culture of silence was not inherited by anything. It has always been here. And it is still here. Hang on.
Okay.
I'm going to use myself as a woman. When we started talking about the issues regarding maternal health, and pregnancy, because of the internet. If you were bleeding during your cycle and your blood was stained, the shame that you had is insane. Meanwhile, that's not your fault. It's just your body doing what it's supposed to do. People will hide your sanitary wear, not to show people outside. And you will whisper to, please, do you have... You have all names, all kinds of nicknames for it, as opposed to say, do you have tampons? Do you have pad? That's a shame tied to a woman. And you cast your mind back to the book Things Fall Apart, written by Chinua Achebe, which is a fantastic example of mental health pre-colonial time. The title of the character was Okonkwo. Okonkwo, that was a man that was falling at the seams. He was casted out. And he killed himself, committed suicide. a notion that people argued with him and told him, why would you write about suicide? Suicide did not exist. And he said, why then was the OSU system created? You know, there were people that would have mental health issues and they would hide it, and so they would cast out. So what I'm saying is that I think that we need to be just,
have a balanced
narrative as to that. And also when you use the word simp, there are people, the red pill men who are on social media who are telling men not to simp for their wife, and who tell them that their wives are outsiders and not families.
Wow.
I don't know if you've seen those rhetoric.
I don't look at them.
Unfortunately, I have to, right? Because they're young girls. I have a younger sister who is in university age. So you see that they'll tell them, don't sit for your women, don't do this. They would teach them tactics on how to subjugate the women, how to neg them, and how to make them smaller. And so when you say that traditional roles,
those are narcissistic behaviors, actually.
Yeah,
that's not where we're going to. Okay? As you just cited all these examples now, I could also cite historically where women took dominant roles. In fact, it's just because we don't see the real deal. Some adage would say that the woman actually controls the home.
Actually.
And that's the truth.
When you get married, you find that out.
That's the truth. You see, it has been, and it would always be. The point is, a lot of women don't just understand how to tap into their feminine energies again today.
I don't think we're talking about feminine energy. We're talking about mental health.
Okay, all right then. Let me come back to men's mental health. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the point is this: coming to the same thing, those men you see on social media, who actually teaching others to subjugate women, are not speaking from a place of accountability. Okay. It's just because of the pride in them. And it's because they do not even understand themselves well enough to understand their roles and responsibility. Okay? As a man, beyond protection, you are meant to express compassion. That's your duty. Okay? So, and we know we have a lot of religious undertones.
Oh, let's talk about that.
To most of what we're talking about. Okay? So, but a lot of people won't go in that direction.
I'm going to come in here and say that I do agree with you with that last input there.
Yeah.
We have cultural and religious cultures that actually add to men's depression when it comes to the African setting, the Nigerian setting.
Absolutely.
And people don't recognize this. I'd like you to speak to that. What are the implications of these cultures that actually harm men mentally, especially the religious one? Because mine was born out of religion.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I never knew that.
Okay, so you see, our religious leaders are seen as demigods in most parts of the world, and there's something we call religious coping. Sometimes when we are faced with challenges in life, it's just currently that we're seeing therapy being privatized and we're having access to it. Before now, who you would go to solve any problem, whether it's individual or marital or whatever, it's as the church or the mosque, you know. So now the belief they have in those figures actually reduces their internal locus of control. So you believe more in what they have to say about your life than your own self-determination.
This creates a crisis.
It does. It creates incongruence in you. Okay? So the more you want to, and now it has shifted from religious leaders to social media. People believe more in what social media has to say about their lives as against what they have to take charge about their life. You know, so the more you reduce your internal locus of control by making decisions based on what external factors are saying, the more you lose the charge. In fact, the more your level of happiness reduces. Because what's the deal breaker for your level of happiness is the amount of intentional activity that you take on in your life. So what I'm saying to that here is now is that, you know, when you have opened something outside yourself or in something external to yourself, and you're not seeing the results over and over, it gets to a point where you don't even know what you want to believe again. Okay? And then, because you don't even know how to even ask for help, because you're scared that stigma or shame will be associated with what is happening, then you're helpless.
What are the symptoms then for others to look out for in men who might be going through these
first
issues?
I would say is aggressiveness. Men that are aggressive are actually probably suffering from functional or clinical depression. That's what people don't see. A man is harsh, a man is wicked, a man is what it is the consequence or the covert actions they see. He certainly, most of the time, is probably going through some subclinical or very much clinical issues as to mental health, okay? A man that makes mistakes, doesn't take accountability, and is continually making those mistakes might be suffering from...
What about risky behavior?
Oh, that's a lot.
I say that very intentionally because, Judith, I don't know if you agree, I do have a very risky hobby.
Okay.
And I'm wondering whether this is a fallout of the, you know, my mental state.
Okay, so the thing about risky behaviors is that, you know, why do we do them? That's the question, the motive behind it.
To feel alive.
That's the point.
Yeah,
the rush, okay?
No, but Mazino, your own is just a need for speed now. Would you say that Lewis Hamilton
feel
has...
alive.
No, but do you think that Lewis Hamilton has something that's a fallout from mental health?
Have you ever been at... No, I don't want to do this. Have you
It's
ever
Lewis
been...
Hamilton.
Yeah, have you ever been 300 kilometers an hour?
No.
Have you ever felt what it feels like? It is very risky.
Yeah, but he's making money, so he's like Claire.
At that point where you're almost crossing in onto the other side is the most alive you'll ever feel.
Yeah, well, I almost died. I kind of know. I know, yeah.
But yeah, risky behavior.
So it's sensation seeking.
Yes.
Okay? And when we get too addicted to that, it leads to instant gratification. Okay? And once we tolerate that pattern, the normal, usual levels of dopamine rush that will take us to that level of excitement we want might not be enough the next time you want to repeat that behavior.
Oh.
So it leads to another form of behavioral addiction over time, and you don't get to know. And that's why you see some people are just used to probably gambling or binge drinking or probably hookups, you know.
So those are other manifestations.
Those are negative coping patterns.
Oh.
Yes. Those are, so the bottom line itself, you know, is that this man has unresolved, whether infantile or adult issues, that he needs to address. But in fact, we call them attention-seeking behaviors. Yes. So, and that's it. You see an average person displaying a undesirable behavior on the street, whether it's a man or a woman. For my own, as a mental health professional, we don't act based on what we see. It is the motive behind why you did what you did. What were the triggers, you know, that we work with? So, and a lot of men out there, you know, have lived their lives trying to find themselves, coupled with the economic pressure we have now. You see, the sense of self-esteem of a man is strongly tied to the level of career achievement. So a lot of boys or young men trying to find their feet, not finding that stability with their career, you know, it's a lot of mental pressure for them, because that is a requisite for them meeting the demands of having a family or probably, you know, living the life they want to live.
Right, and that's why at the beginning I was trying to, like, you know, saying that this issue of us, you know, enforcing traditional roles and saying energy is male, femininity and masculinity, I think that's also a dangerous rhetoric as well, because there are men that, because of how capitalist our society is, you know, how there's more pressure on the man to earn, to climb higher in their career, to provide, it takes a toll on them and they break under the weight.
I think the misconception here is the definition of what true masculinity is in the context of what you're saying.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah,
so true masculinity is healthy. It's not toxic. You're saying it in the context of... So true masculinity is you being accountable to yourself, being able to face your objective reality. You're not in denial of your objective reality. Having the capacity to know when to seek for help. These are the true values of masculinity. It's not about being bossy or being patriarchal or being dominant. No, that is not.
But that's what society expects.
And so that is why we are now trying to recorrect the concept of what masculinity is.
All right, so go ahead.
Okay? Okay, so what you are thinking, what you have seen...
That's what I'm thinking.
What
society...
Okay, what society...
Because society is a social construct, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
It's toxic masculinity.
Exactly.
But the definition of true masculinity is protection, compassion. Okay, see, every individual. If you look at our genes, let me even come from the biological viewpoint.
Just hang
on.
Hang on a second. Okay. Again, true masculinity, protect, provide,
compassion,
right?
kindness.
Hang on.
Okay.
hang on.
Yeah.
Protection, like you say.
Yes.
As a man, they're on, again, this, I'm a woman.
Yes, it's all right.
I always say this, right? That women encounter men more than men encounter women. And I say this because I have seen more third legs that I need than I have ever used in my life.
Sorry, what? What's the third?
Third legs. And the reason,
I have no idea what you mean.
That's euphemistic.
I don't know what it means.
No, because
Men don't have 3 legs.
yeah, because of how they pull it out.
joking.
You know, I mean, like
Wow.
pull it out, and all of that,
Wow.
right?
That's unhealthy.
So that, so
that's unhealthy.
So I'm telling you, hang on, I'm saying it from a woman's point of view, right? And I hopefully, and by women I mean by what women, because the majority, even our population is more women than it is men, right? And so protection to the average Nigerian man is providing
Security.
Okay.
security.
Okay.
So let me to land first,
Okay.
please.
Okay.
Protection to men in Nigeria is providing.
Yes.
Compassion
Yes.
is providing. Accountability is providing. Parenting
It's providing. Yes, and we need to change the narrative.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Let's round this up by asking.
I want to
Yeah,
pick
please.
something from what she just
Go
said
ahead
now,
then.
very importantly, about self-control. Okay? A lot of men are having these issues of mental health, mental illness, because they lack the capacity to control themselves. The id state is the animalistic state for every individual, okay? So because they haven't grown to become, to attain the stage of maturity as expected, it's not by age. They've been stuck at some levels of developmental milestones. They are unable to actually, deliver at the expected,
Optimum.
And so because they just want to adjust, is why you see them trying to find ways to just prove who they are.
Compensate.
But the real ideal sense is the superego, the moral state. Okay, so these are some of the things we want to start looking at. That what are the moral values?
Okay.
We are trying to from the very early age. And I say this because sometimes we think it's about setting the rules and instructions. No, it's about what the child sees.
Okay.
So I
two
just want
things
to
here.
speak to self-control.
Yeah.
It's a very key part of masculinity.
All right. So 2 things here: support and remedy. Support is an external thing. How can we, people outside who are seeing a development with an individual, help? Remedy. What kinds of remedies can one submit themselves to when they note from your speech now that I have a problem? Where do they go? What do they do? How do they submit?
Support first is less judgment, more compassion.
Less judgment, more compassion.
That is support. When you see someone displaying an unhealthy behavior, first is to show compassion, okay, before judgment, okay? So now as to remedies, depending on the severity of the problem, okay? And that's why we say if there's only an onset diagnosis of the problem, you might not require being clinically detained or probably on medications or something, the earlier you seek for help, the earlier you join support groups. In the last few months, I've had to be involved in men's forums, on
This is a
Twitter,
very critical
physically.
bit here, and I'm asking intentionally, when do I submit? When do I know that it is time to submit? Do I have to start walking the streets uncontrollably first? When do I know that I need help?
Once you realize that your normal lifestyle has changed drastically.
All men know when they need help.
Yes.
They just will reach out.
Well, what would it manifest as is the question, because there's so many.
So we have internalizing behaviors and externalizing behaviors. I wish we had more time. Like I said earlier, I was saying aggressiveness. I said there's something called mental dissociation. When you see you are totally mentally disconnected from your environment, there's a problem. Activities you do before you find yourself having low productivity, there's a consistently emotional exhaustion, or you find yourself making statements that are not even coherent with what
conditions
that are
about.
or you're making mistakes. You don't want to take accountability. You're at every little tension, you're on the outburst rage. You start to see that this is not me. But then, how do you now ask for help? It's a function of what your circle is like.
Exactly, which is why I asked both support and remedy at the same time.
Yeah.
Because they have to work hand in hand now, don't they?
So the
because to be able
thing,
to know that I have an issue, I might need to have been told.
So the beautiful thing now
Some
is...
people know that they have issues.
Yes.
Because they're men.
I'll be objective with you. Most
Yeah.
women that come into therapy, the men had the maintaining factors.
Oh.
In fact, most of the cases where we have women on psychiatric that are on medications, the men induced it.
Yes.
But the men won't be accountable. I'm a perinatal anxiety and depression coach. I deal with expectant women. So when she is just talking, I understand everything she's saying, you know.
Amen, they know.
So
People
what-
know what they're doing.
But this is also pressure for us as men, because women often would point
But
and
that's
say,
saying
you
pressure.
are the problem.
Yes, now.
So how can we
The truth is we
how
have
can-
the
how can
problem.
we
Thank you.
what team are
We
you
have the
playing?
problem.
What team are you on?
No, we are the problem. Yes, we have to accept that first. You see, the first step to changing attitude is self-awareness.
Yeah.
If you can't accept your current state objectively, you are not ready to change.
And I think that's where the bone of contention is this, because a lot of men know that they are the problems. They know that, and they cannot help themselves. Is this Mazino rightfully put? This bullet train is going, speed of lightning is going. They cannot stop until they crash and they burn. It's like, oh my God, my entire life has fallen down. But you knew.
You know, I hear
saw the
something a lot.
signs.
Nobody can talk to him. I hear that phrase.
Yeah. Oh
So
my God.
imagine a man that not his friend, not his parents, nobody can talk to him. And that's why I tell people, before you get married, go for premarital counseling.
Oh, yes.
It's very
important.
crucial.
Very
So
important.
it's a lot to unpack, but thank you for the engaging discussion.
Mohammed, as always, I appreciate you for coming on.
Very, very interesting talk here.
Yeah, welcome again.
I'm hoping that every man out there who's listened to this takes something away. There's so much that has been talked about on the different aspects to acknowledging and also to seeking help. But I also will say that support is a very, very big deal.